Balochistan, Pakistan's largest yet most neglected province. A land rich in natural resources but burning with unrest. The recent train hijacking by Baloch Liberation Army, the first large-scale attack of its kind, has once again brought the decades-old Baloch insurgency into the spotlight. But what lies behind the rising wave of violence? Is Balochistan Pakistan's failed project? Who are these Baloch separatists and what are they fighting for? Hello and welcome. I'm Geeta Mohan and you're watching Statecraft. The story of Balochistan's struggle isn't new. It dates back to 1947, the year of India-Pakistan partition. Balochistan, home to ethnic Baloch minority, has always had a complex relationship with Pakistan. After the princely state of Kalat, part of present-day Balochistan, was forcefully annexed by Pakistan in 1948, the seeds of resistance were sown. The Baloch people, proud of their cultural identity and their resource-rich land, felt sidelined and suppressed. Baloch leaders claimed they were promised autonomy, but instead, they faced military operations and economic exploitation. Despite accounting for 44% of Pakistan's landmass, Balochistan houses only a fraction of the population and suffers from underdevelopment, coercion, and systemic repression. Islamabad's policies, rooted in colonial-era governance, have failed to integrate Balochistan, fueling an enduring insurgency that has evolved into a serious threat to Pakistan's authority. Over the decades, this resentment grew. Baloch people saw their gas, oil, and mineral wealth being extracted, but the benefits rarely reached them. Islamabad's policies only deepened the feelings of marginalization. In the early 2000s, this long-standing discontent gave rise to Baloch Liberation Army, or the BLA, a group demanding autonomy and later complete independence for Balochistan. The Baloch resistance has been driven by long-standing grievances, including federal overreach, resource exploitation, and the state's failure to grant meaningful autonomy. The killing of Akbar Bugti, a senior Pakistani politician and Tumandar, or head of the Bugti tribe of Baloch people, in the year 2006 marked a turning point, intensifying the separatist movement and fueling anti-Pakistan sentiments. Groups like BLA and the Balochistan Liberation Front, or BLF, have waged a war primarily targeting Pakistani security forces and infrastructure, those they hold responsible for the oppression that continues in Balochistan. Islamabad's response has been brutal, with widespread human rights abuses such as enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killings, and collective punishment. Instead of addressing legitimate grievances, the government brands all Baloch demands as separatism, alienating even moderate factions. This repression has not only sustained the separatist sentiment, but has also mobilized the Baloch middle class, including women, into resistance efforts. BLA's fight is rooted in both economic and political grievances. Balochistan's vast natural resources are being exploited by Pakistani state, while the local population remains impoverished. These instances of economic injustice fuels their demand for greater autonomy and a larger share of their own resources. To make Pakistan and the world hear their grievances, BLA has launched numerous attacks over the years, targeting security forces, their infrastructure, and at times foreign nationals working on Chinese projects under the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC, and also now have become collateral damage in the attacks that have been carried out by various factions within Balochistan. The message over here is very clear. Baloch people and their resources cannot be exploited without their consent. And these aren't isolated incidents. The Baloch have staged at least 5 major insurgencies over the years, each time demanding a greater share of their province's resources and more political autonomy, and every time the Pakistani government has responded with heavy-handed military crackdowns and almost near denials. Balochistan Liberation Army has been responsible for a series of violent attacks in Pakistan from 2006 to the present, attacking security forces, also targeting foreign nationals, particularly Chinese workers associated with development projects. The message again, only to ensure that they are heard. The group escalated its activities during the 2000s, with rocket attacks on then-President Pervez Musharraf's visit in 2006 and multiple kidnappings and killings of security personnel. Throughout the 2010s, BLA intensified its insurgency, attacking security personnel as also the infrastructure that was being built to help Pakistani security personnel and people sitting in the Punjab. The attacks also included historic Quaid-e-Azam residency in 2013 and the Chinese consulate in Karachi in 2018. In the 2020s, their campaign continued with high-profile attacks like the 2020 Pakistan Stock Exchange attack and the 2022 suicide bombing at Karachi University carried out by a female member. Recent incidents include a deadly assault on Chinese engineers in Gwadar in August 2023, the killing of 74 people in coordinated attacks in August 2024, and a suicide bombing at Quetta railway station in November 2024, which killed 32 people. Pakistan's Apex Committee announced a military operation against BLA on the 20th of November 2024 to contain the efforts being made by BLA to resist Pakistani forces within Balochistan. But serious chaos unfolded as BLA on the 11th of March seized the Jafar Express, taking hundreds of passengers hostage. Pakistani forces, their military, being questioned as to what was being done about the intelligence failure when it comes to Balochistan. Pakistani forces claimed that they killed all 50 attackers, but not before 21 innocent lives were lost. What the Baloch Liberation Army wanted to do was to highlight the plight of Balochistan. And yes, they managed to do that because everybody started looking at and holding conversations on the situation in Balochistan. The train hijacking marks a dangerous escalation though. Never before has the BLA attempted such a large-scale operation. But why now? BLA has grown more emboldened since the Pakistani Taliban, officially known as the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan or the TTP, ended their ceasefire with the government in 2022. The TTP regularly target Pakistani security forces and have even expanded their attacks beyond Balochistan, like in Karachi, Pakistan's largest city. The environment of rising militancy across the country has given BLA an opportunity to intensify their own attacks against the oppressive forces in Balochistan. The unrest in Balochistan is a nightmare for Pakistan. The province's instability scares off foreign investors and jeopardizes billions of dollars of projects. And then there's the international dimension. Islamabad accuses India of supporting the BLA, a claim New Delhi denies. At the same time, the porous 900-kilometer border between Balochistan and Iran allows insurgents and smugglers to operate with ease, straining Pakistan-Iran relations. So what does BLA want? Their ultimate goal is an independent Balochistan, or a Baloch state encompassing Baloch majority regions not just in Pakistan but in Iran and Afghanistan as well. Their fighters, estimated at around 3,000 strong, see themselves as freedom fighters, battling Pakistan's oppression and the colonization of Pakistan or by Pakistan. BLA's recent tactics, like the train hijacking, may win them attention, but they risk alienating the very population they claim to fight for. Civilian deaths undermine their support base and damage their legitimacy. People of Balochistan remain caught in the crossfire between a state accused of exploitation and resistance. And with Pakistan's economy already on shaky grounds, continued instability in Balochistan threatens foreign investments and development projects. The 18th Amendment to the Constitution of Pakistan, passed in the year 2010, is one of the most significant constitutional reforms in the country's history. It aimed to decentralize power by expanding provincial autonomy, strengthening parliamentary democracy, and limiting the powers of the president. The amendment remains a landmark in Pakistan's constitutional history, promoting federalism, democracy, and decentralization for the Baloch people. But its implementation remains contentious, especially regarding resource distribution and governance efficiency. And of course, certainly, there is no autonomy in Balochistan. The Baloch do not have a say in where their resources are moved, who benefits from the resources within Balochistan. So where do we go from here? The Baloch resistance shows no signs of abating, and Pakistan's government has struggled to address the root causes of the conflict. Heavy-handed military operations have failed to curb violence, and allegations of human rights abuses only fuel further resentment. Let's not forget the role of economic exploitation. The Baloch see their natural wealth being extracted for the benefit of others, while their communities remain impoverished. Until that changes, the calls for independence and violence, of course, are unlikely to stop. Despite military offensives aimed at crushing the insurgency, violence has only escalated. In 2024 alone, a surge in attacks by Baloch insurgents demonstrated their growing operational strength. Pakistan's counter-insurgency efforts, marked by excessive force rather than reconciliation, have backfired, pushing more Baloch civilians towards what is now called as an independence movement and resistance. The state's reliance on proxy death squads further exacerbates instability, reinforcing its failure to govern Balochistan effectively. The persistence of the insurgency highlights Pakistan's failure to integrate Balochistan through political and economic inclusion. Repressive tactics have only deepened divisions, making lasting peace elusive. A shift toward genuine political dialogue, decentralization through the 18th Amendment, and a truth and reconciliation process could be steps towards stability. However, as long as the military retains unchecked power and continues its repressive strategies, Balochistan will remain a symbol of Pakistan's failed governance model. In essence, Balochistan represents Pakistan's instability to transition from colonial-style control to inclusive nation-building. The province's ongoing insurgency and systemic oppression underscore the state's failure to establish legitimacy, making it one of the most glaring examples of Pakistan's internal fractures. Without meaningful reforms, Balochistan will continue to challenge the very foundation of Pakistan's federal structure. In the end, the Baloch Liberation Movement is a complex and deeply rooted struggle. It's about identity, resources, and a fight against injustice. While Pakistan continues to oppress, the Baloch will continue to fight. And it doesn't seem like there is a middle ground that they will be finding where peace can really prevail. Will Balochistan find its own place on this earth, on this planet, on the map? Or will Pakistan continue to suppress Balochistan? This is a question I leave you with for you to think and see how states should be governing areas that should be autonomous. Thank you for watching Statecraft.